So for these, we have to get the possible solutions. We take the factors of the constant and we put them all over the factors of the leading coefficient. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, and 30 are possible rational solutions. Then I put all those numbers over 2. 1/2. 2 over 2 is 1. 3/2. 5 over 2. 6 over 2 is 3. 10 over 2 is 5. 15 over 2, and 30 over 2 is 15. So this is my list of possible solutions. I always like to start with 1 and -1. Drop the 2. We get 9. 9 times 1 is 9. Positive 2. Does not work. Try -1. 2, 7, negative. -7, -30. Drop the 2, -2, we're at 5, -5, we're at -12. 12, we're at -18, that doesn't work. But when I try a positive 2, remember, I'm going to give you answers that work in the first 6 options. Plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, or plus or minus 3 here. Take a look what happens with 2. We get 4, that's 11. 22, that's 15. 30, we're at 0. Once we get an option that works, now we can factor. (2x plus 5, x plus 3). And I do need to write down my other factor. If 2 works, x minus 2 is a factor. So my zeros, -5/2, -3, and 2 are my answers. Second one, my factors of 15, 1, 3, 5, and 15. My factors of 3 are 1 and 3. So plus or minus 1, plus or minus 3, plus or minus 5, plus or minus 15. Plus or minus 1/3. 3 over 3 is 1. I don't have to write that one again. 5/3. And 15 over 3 is 5. I don't need to write that one again. So those are my possible solutions. So when I try 1 in the box, 3, -11, 1, and 15. Drop the 3, -8, -7. Doesn't work. If I use -1, though, 3, -11, 1, and 15. Drop the 3, -3, that's a -14. -14 times 1 is 14. 1 and 14 is 15. Times the -1, -15, that's 0. So now I'm going to factor 3x squared minus 14x plus 15. 3x and x. That's going to give me a -5 and a -3. That gets me my -14x in the middle. The x minus 1 is represented by a factor of x plus 1. So 5/3, 3, and -1 is my answers. So those are my factors, those are my zeros. Okay. Possible solutions here. 48. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, 18, 24, and 48. My factors of 3, 1 and 3. So my possible solutions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, 18, 24, 48. Then 1/3, 2/3, 3/3 is 1, 4/3, 6/3 is 2, 8/3, 12/3 is 4, 18/3 is 6, 24/3 is 8, and 48/3 is 16. We don't need to write them double. Let's start with 1. 3, 13, -16, -68, and 48. If I try 1, this one clearly does not work. Try -1. 3, 13, negative 16, negative 68, and 48. You try negative 1, negative 3, we get 10, negative 26. 26 and negative 68 is 42. Negative 42, we get a 6. That does not work. So let's come to 2. 3, 13, negative 16, negative 68, and 48. Drop the 3, we get 6, that's 19. 38, that's 22. 44, that's a negative 24. Negative 48, that works. So 2 creates a 0. You have to try the 2 again. 3, 19, 22, and negative 24. We drop the 3, 9, we get 28, 56. We can already start to tell this is probably not going to work. 78 times 2 is 156. Minus 24 is 132. No good. Let's try negative 2. 3, 19, 22, and negative 24. Drop the 3, negative 6. We're at 13, negative 26. Negative 4, we're at 8. That's no good. Let's try 3. 3, 13, negative 4. No, oh, I'm sorry. Thanks. Don't do that. 3, 19, 22, and negative 24. 3 and 3 is 9. 3 times 3 is 9. 28 times 3 is 84. 106 times 3 is 318. It's clearly not going to be a number that works. So based on what I told you, negative 3 better work. Because that's your last option. 3, 19, 22, and negative 24. Let's see what happens. 3, we have negative 9, that's 10. Negative 30, that's negative 8. And 24. Perfect. And that works. As I said, you'll get the options in your first 6. So negative 3 and 2 are options. So now I got to factor that double depressed equation. 3x squared plus 10x minus 8. And that becomes 3x minus 2, x plus 4. I also have to include the other 2 factors. X minus 2 and x plus 3. My answers are 2/3, negative 4, 2, and negative 3. And these are our answers. So with x to the 4th, same thing as x cubed, you just have to do it twice. So we'll do the same thing here. My factors of 6, 1, 2, 3, and 6. My factors of 2 are 1 and 2. Possible solutions. Plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3, plus or minus 6. Plus or minus 1/2. 2 over 2 is 1, plus or minus 3/2. All right, so synthetically dividing again here. Let's start with 1. All right, 2, negative 7, negative 2, 13, and 6. Drop the 2, we get negative 5, negative 7. Negative 7, we get a 6. Now be careful here. 6 times 1 is 6, that's 12, not 0. Sometimes people panic and you say that's 0. That's not right. Now let's try it with negative 1. 2, negative 7, negative 2, 13, and 6. Drop the 2, we get a negative 2, negative 9. Negative 9 times a negative 1 is 9. We get 7. 7 times a negative 1 is a negative 7. 13 and negative 7 is 6. 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. There's your 0. So now we try negative 1 again. 2, negative 9, 7, and 6. Negative 11. 11, that's 18. That doesn't work. Let's try 2 now. 2, negative 11, 18, and, 2, negative 9, 7, and 6. Drop the 2, we get 4. Negative 5, we get a negative 10. -3, we get the -6, and there's your 0. So my factors I know of are going to be 2 and -1. Once I have those two factors, I want to factor. So 2x squared minus 5x minus 3, that factors. 2x plus 1, x minus 3. And my other two factors, x plus 1 created by the -1 and x minus 2. My zeros, -1/2, 3, -1, and 2. Those are my factors, and those are my zeros, which represent my answer. Now, when they tell you to use your Desmos calculator, it's going to give you, hopefully, one rational solution, at the very least. Now, so when I plug this in correctly, right? Okay. So here, this is not rational, but -2 and 3 are rational. So we can use the Desmos calculator to speed up our synthetic division. -2 and 3 work. So I'll start with a lower number, -2. 1, 7, -12, -50, and -12. Now, if you notice, on the graphing calculator, you got two irrational solutions as well. You'll see that here. -22, we get a 44. -6, and we get a 12, which is 0. That's one factor. 3 would also be a factor. 1, 5, -22, and -6. 1, we get that, so we 8, 24, I get a 2, and I get 6, so we get 0. The problem is, the other two solutions are not rational solutions. So I have to use the quadratic formula with this trinomial I can't factor. So I have to do -8 plus or minus 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 2 over 2 times 1. We should know the quadratic formula at this point. -8 plus or minus 64 minus 8 is 56. And 56 simplifies to 2 root 14. We divide both terms by 2. -4 plus or minus root 14 are two answers, and -2 and 3 are the other two answers. With a question like this, we're just trying to find the zeros, and we use the Desmos calculator to help. The second one, when I put that into the Desmos calculator, it only crosses the x-axis at 1, even though there should be 3 answers. It crosses it at, it only crosses at one spot, which is 2. So I'm going to use 2 to synthetically divide. And chances are I'm going to get a trinomial. I'm going to have to put in a quadratic formula. I'm not going to be able to factor x squared plus 4x plus 6. So that means it goes to -4 plus or minus 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 6 over 2 times 1. -4 plus or minus 16 minus 24 is a -8. That becomes -4 plus or minus 2i root 2 over 2. When I divide the 2 on both terms, -2 plus or minus I root 2. And my other answer is 2. So if it says in the instructions to use the Desmos calculator, you can use that, okay, to figure out at least one rational solution for an x cubed or 2 rational solutions for an x to the 4th. You synthetically divide them, and then you're going to use the quadratic formula on the trinomial left over. That's how you get your zeros.